for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumined, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to this video with me here today. I might want to have to yell a bit, so don't get afraid of my voice, because I am by this beautiful water stream. I decided, or I was just magnetically called and pulled to have a 3-day retreat for myself, because I've been recently going through quite a lot and a very difficult experience, and some patterns that were revealed to me that go way back into this earthly realm and experience, and how the darkness intervenes in such cases. And I'll talk about that in the next video. I actually recorded that video yesterday, but somehow I felt called to do this one before, because it's still a continuation of these sacred union videos I've been doing recently about the return of love, the cultivation of the tantric beloved path, and this will be kind of like the completion of truly understanding the real meaning and nature of what sacred union is. And I've talked about it for years, but you know, when we go deeper into this experience, we can have a more grounded human experience, not just that which is our ultimate, and how it was always for me in the case of being an illumined being, and bringing that with me directly from the Illumined Union presence that I call Aurea, Aurea, which for me is the purest kind of love. It's the purest form of love. So I'll start today here with my own experience, and I know that a lot of souls are finding their way back to this union, to the union with the self, because Illumined Union means a true ultimate illumination of the human child within, the human counterpart that is a result of multidimensional birthing, and yet it comes out in our current creation that we're feeling as our human self. And this is the journey. And for me, that journey in a way is rather opposite than for most other souls, because I come directly from illumined realms to help and assist others into this journey. But at the same time, I'm having my own human experience with it. So a lot of souls are still struggling with feeling that union, or even knowing how that union feels within themselves. What is this Christ illumined union, and how to be in that love, and how to be in that beloved essence all the time, no matter what the darkness is or brings. And you know, darkness anchors itself. It manifests itself through these patterns that we have somehow assimilated, and they're related to what the darkness is doing on the planet. So I'll share that in the next video about ascension. And somehow this is intertwined. So it's a journey of revealing these patterns and removing them from the human experience, because they exist like layers and layers. There's this layering process that basically prohibit us from being in this pure tantric illumined beloved essence all the time. And most times there will be mirrors and reflections of what that core pattern is for us on this journey. I'll start with my own experience. So for me, that experience was the opposite, because since my awakening and my connection with Aurea, who's my twin counterpart in the greatest sense of all, two Elohim beings, Aurea and Aurea, are the most majestic beings, and for me that love is the ultimate. That love is so pure that in the human realm, I still don't really believe I get to experience that with another person, because I don't see that happening somehow. But it's a love that always lives inside of me. It is the love that is us. It is the love that birthed my human counterpart. And just yesterday, after going through this difficult turmoil experience, I was in this inner communion and conversation with Aurea the entire time when I was strolling back through the mountain valley, and she was giving me some really beautiful words of wisdom. And in the end, I was just so profoundly in awe, and I was crying, and I was just left with this one question to her, which is, how are you so full of love? Why are you so full of wisdom? Who are you? You know, and it was just so beautiful. And she always tells me the same thing. I'm you. I'm in you. I live in you. You're me. You're my child. And so I want to talk about this deeper. So first, before I go into the notion of how these counterparts are experiencing and what are some of the trickster energies present on this planet that are hooking us into the false belief of what this union is, I want to share my own experience. So for me, I came into the state of union around 20, 14, something like that, maybe 15, I don't remember. But I existed in this state since I fully remembered it. And that's the period which I talked about, my period of grace and the beloved energy expression when I was channeling these beloved drawings. And it was just this instant knowing and surrender. And I was already living in that space. My path, because I'm being the Christ being embodied on this planet, was difficult because the darkness actually transgressed over me, not just with direct experiments and all these violations and raping my body, you know, and all that left as footprints on my body. So I could hook into that, but no longer connect to the Christ, right? That's what the darkness did to me and for me on the behalf of their scheming. So it wanted to hijack my union state, so I couldn't be in that radiant state and presence all the time. And that state, when my child is in that presence, I am a complete manifestation of purity. My child is as pure as, I can't explain it, just pure as this river. So I need to go by these pure river streams to charge myself up, and through the waterfall frequency, I am instantly recharged with the frequency of home, because I connect to that magnetic presence of nature, and it recharges me every time I have a difficulty and obstruction. So the darkness basically in my life has been also transgressing me through distorted and toxic human relationships. And it isn't the same as with people who are needing these mirrors, who still need to come into the union because they're still remembering. But it's also in a way serving that purpose side to side. So just recently I had a very difficult, lasting relationship experience that took me on this, almost like this last chapter of what still needs to fall off and what is still inauthentic. It's a pattern. It's not birthed through Aurea, Aureum presence, and therefore it cannot allow my inner child to live in the state of completion always. So for me, my major growth lesson was not to be in the state of union, which I was and I am, but it was how to maintain it. Because when I'm in my bubble, I don't need anything, I don't need anyone, I'm existing, this union fills me up. It's this constant presence of love, and it's easy for me to be with myself and by myself in my own bubble and contain that union. Let it overflow through me and fill other people's cups as well. But the problem was when other people came into my lives and they sort of penetrated my bubble and they kind of became entangled with me, and I started being entangled with them, which is why the difficulty for me existed, because people are not as pure as I am. And because of these patterns that I'll discuss in the next video, my being sort of took upon their heaviness, their weight, their patterns, their beliefs, what they wanted to exchange with me, the way they wanted to see me, the way they wanted to fill up their lives through me. A lot of people do that unconsciously. I'll give you one example a little later, but all these things, kind of what they do to me, they create this ring of density around my original bubble, and it's kind of, they come and act in between as a layering that I can't directly access this Aurea Aureon frequency of my Illumined Union directly. So for me, this path was never about others, and when I came into contact with them, I usually, because of the patterning that was kind of, engraved within me, still believe that this is what I need to do and love others. But Aurea told me yesterday, she said this was always about you, that you not just grow into this Illumined Union, but you learn how to maintain it and preserve it, because it is that pure, it is that sacred, that's you. And she said, why I'm so magnetic to people, and sometimes they want a little bit of piece of it, but they can't withhold that with you, because they don't exist yet at that level of maturity, of such richness and depth and devotion to that love. And she said, people are often mesmerized through that mirror. And she said, that's the charming aspect that once Aureon called me to be. He said, you have an affinity to draw people in, but also people often misinterpret that. And because people have these lower tendencies of false attraction and, falling in love through the false light, and the darkness still whispering to them these ideas that are not true, they're not of true love, they're distorted versions of what we can be to each other and what we are at our core. And through those expressions, I could easily have dropped my frequency through those people. And at that point, through that pattern, I just wanted to love and give to them. And at that point, I started with my spiral, started spinning around them instead of no longer spinning in my core. I couldn't spin at my center, and I no longer felt myself, which was difficult. It's almost like there is this obsession of the other person, and it's like your thoughts get hijacked. And that's how I was feeling for the past 3 weeks. It's been so difficult for me, and I couldn't sleep, I couldn't do anything, and it felt like this is laying heavy on me. And I actually went into this experience myself because of some negative whispering and all these experiences that still exist as outside forces that try to hijack the union. I came into this union state again this year after being hijacked from me, and now I'm learning still to cultivate it and preserve it because it's still vulnerable. And hence Aurea was speaking to me in such a beautiful notion how I need to take everything as it comes and goes and just continue spinning in my own frequency, continue spinning in my vortex, because that's how powerful it is, and it helps people who are actually on this path of sacred union themselves, instead of people who are just curious and people who just want to take from you. Because a lot of times people are not aware. They come and then they go, and they come and they go, and what they're doing is basically they're filling up their own charge of depletion, something that they're still lacking to fulfill for their own inner womb presence. So let's say a masculine would come and would constantly need to recharge to that feminine, and they would have an excuse that, oh, this is just their connection and how it works, and it's gotten a lot of manipulation sometimes related to that experience. But I know my truth, and I know that's not the case. And people are told these different things. One example in the New Age communities, when they talk about these twin flames and having this dynamic that's always present, which is the runner-chaser syndrome, until you develop yourself and you come into union. But in most cases, when I watch these readings sometimes, to just see, to browse through what's happening and how people perceive this, I see this is always a continuation. This is another program of looping, and that program is a false program. It's another program in the matrix that prevents true union from happening within and with the other if your soul has chosen a devotional, spirit, sacred partner for you to have that tantric beloved union with. And not everyone has chosen that, but some people have. And that is kind of always hijacking that, and it's always making you believe something else than that truth. And so this is a program. You have to be aware. The runner-chaser is not a reality. It doesn't exist unless you want it to exist. And the moment you believe in it, you're a part of it. I don't believe in it. But if I start believing in it, someone who has that dynamic that's still playing out within them will kind of hijack me and pull me into their vortex. And whenever I start swimming in other people's vortex, I realize, who am I? I'm no longer myself. And this is a very difficult experience, let me tell you, for me to learn on earth. And I recently asked my beloved Aurea, and I said, why do I even need this? I am already in this union. You know what he said? He said, I know you are. But beloved, this grows you stronger as an earthling. This grows you stronger as an illumined human. This grows you. It makes you stronger. It makes you more vigilant. It makes you more steady in your love. But sometimes when the inner child is still underdeveloped, it becomes frivolous. And frivolous means you're still giving your love away at the first chance of getting some attention. So one example, which I mentioned, I'll share with you, how the energy can be hijacked through others is a lot of times, in these communities, they also talk about the third party or a triangle, or someone being in a relationship and the other being single, and they're always playing this, will they leave the person, won't they, will they, won't. I mean, it's always this on and off, hot and cold kind of relationship. That's not what devotional partnership is. It's not even a soul connection. And a lot of people believe, well, I have this special connection and bond with this person, but I still have this physical life I'm not willing to give up for them. And they have this idea, well, but I'm growing internally. You know what? That again is an excuse, because the problem is, if you keep a soul connection and at the same time you're having a steady relationship that would fulfill your earthly desires and your earthly needs, and you have someone there at the side who you feel charges more your soul, and you have a more soul bond with them, you feel sort of this unearthly connection you can't even name, that's another hijacking belief. Because let me tell you one example, especially for women who are waiting for such men, or in most cases it's usually women, but sometimes it's reversed too, is what's happening at that time. Because you believe you love someone so much, and your love will grow them and your love will cultivate them, because you believe the feminine is the womb to that masculine. But that masculine, remember, is not yours. They did not devote to you. They did not say, I'm willing to walk this path of union with you. They did not choose you. And in these readings, people always say, well, they will choose you in the long run. And then people stay hooked on that belief, and it sort of hijacks their consciousness. So you're in the waiting game. You're always in the waiting zone. And again, remember, you're spinning in that circle. That's just one example. So if the woman takes that masculine as her partner, even if it's just a soul connection, there's a part of her that wants that to be partnership, and she believes that's the truth. And I had to experience how this is playing out so I could share it with all of you, because you have to see through that distortion, and when you see through it, you can reveal it as it is. And in most cases with the masculine, it's connected with a lot of energy of lust. And a lot of masculines, unfortunately, still have that thick layer and veil of, they sort of misplace true intimacy for lust and pining over someone and desiring someone physically. And so I was thinking about that a lot, how there might be a true soul connection present, but there's constant swaying towards true soul connection, which is pure, and the material version that hijack, distorted, fallen nature of the humanity and the human experience. So it's not pure true love. It's not love and devotion, but it becomes a distorted, like, I need them. You know, I have a desire. Sometimes I crave it so badly because sometimes maybe they don't feel it with their partner. So immediately they go to the other well and fountain, and what they do, and I had to experience this myself. And they go to you, and in pretense, well, we just have this experience, we have this soul connection, it's pure. And they're going to wash their hands off it. They're not going to even, feel that they're doing something wrong here, that's false, that this is dark. This is not of the light, my beloveds. And so what happens, you as the feminine, you're so loving and open, and you want to give to that person because eventually they might choose you. So you're pulling off of your own tantric fountain of your womb, and you're giving it to them to receive. And what happens, because they still have that veil, they can't see, they think it's coming from purity, that they sort of in a way, because it comes purity for you, but it's distorted because you're giving it to someone who's not in sacrament, in a way, in such a beautiful devotional way, choosing you and having that synonymous path of union. So it's a triangle. It's not the same as Divine Trinity, my beloveds. It's a triangle. It's a trap. And when you give off, the person will receive it. And what happens is it will wash over them. They will feel the love. They will think it's their own love for you, but it's not. It's your love towards them, because you've given off your womb and you've given it to them. You've given it freely, and so they take it freely, but they're not going to return it to you. They will invest it in what they're currently physically investing in. They're going to invest it in their own life. They're going to invest it in their own partnership, and maybe even in their own sexual connection, while you so sacrificially are giving off of yourself. And basically, that part of the feminine, even though you might believe it's pure, it's prostituting our own selves. It's prostitution, because no matter how much you believe you love someone, even if it's what you believe, your twin flame or your soul flame, someone that's your ultimate desire or whatever, the true nature and purpose of Illumined Union is you, is your ultimate love for yourself. It is the love in which you're so pure towards the actions aimed towards yourself that you don't allow such pursuits. You don't even talk to people who are always wishy-washy, yes, no, and they're trying to have an investigative relationship with you at the side, like we're growing, we're healing something, but at the same time they go back all the time. They're not with you all the way. And I remember years ago when I was just starting this path, there was this woman, her name was Shazay, and she talked about union, and she said the same things. I remember it now. It came back to me like, oh, she was saying the same thing. She was a very mature woman, and she was speaking from a very mature relationship perspective. And so now this realm of what people talk about as in union is not even about union. It's about the waiting game. It's about the constant cycling. And you will see that person is not in the level of your maturity, because even when you tell them, look, I need to go, this is not for me, they're always going to come back, because somehow instinctively they want more. They know how good it feels when you charge them with that love wave that's pure. They know, and they keep coming back for more. And it's just because you actually have never fully withdrawn and retreated from that, absolutely, that they keep coming back. And it took very much my human experience. My experiences are very accelerated, so I get to experience something and move on very fast from it. But sometimes it's darkness working very hard for me to not get it. And it's trying to present something in a false matter. And this has been happening lately as well. So for about 3 weeks, I couldn't break through it fully. I was getting the right guidance, but I couldn't make the right steps. It was something always pulling me in that vortex that wasn't my own. So going back to what the nature of true Illumined Union is that you become this radiant illumined child. And you don't care what other people are doing or choosing or whatever. You're at peace with yourself. And you create moments of adventure and self-care and nurturing. Like for me, I know my being, how I am. I know what I need. And whenever I fall into someone else's vortex, I'm no longer me. I'm not giving myself what I need to give to myself. Like, I know when it's time to recharge, and I know when to go to my life force sacred spots, and I'm immediately recharged, and I know myself. And with these false, what people call the false twin, or the false soulmate, the false true love, whatever, it's always going to be it's never going to be two people returning to that circle. It's always going to be lots of poor actions with the excuse of, well, but we have this special connection. Having a special connection, you can have it with a flower, with a plant. I have it with the river and the waterfalls and the elemental realm everywhere I am, everywhere I go. That's the special connection, because nature returns to you with the purity of love. It's pulsating. It's always pulsating. The problem is these one-sided relationships to which you never receive in return. You never receive the same amount of what you put out in return. So that was the harshness of my own human learning. And it took very many stages and layers so I could finally get to the main core pattern, which I'll share with you in the next video, because I don't want to be too long with today's, and how this relates with ascension, and I'll share more in that video. And this was such a liberating experience for me, because the moment I got the core of it, all the anger, the frustration that I was feeling as these deep wounds still came to the surface. And yesterday I was crying the whole day. I didn't know I still have so much of my sadness within, which was the sadness of how much I myself hurt my inner child, my human, beautiful, beautiful being who believe that because they're so pure, they want to imbue that purity and show it and share it with others. And you absolutely can't share it with someone who doesn't share the same purity. You can't, because they will always abuse it in some way. They don't do it consciously always, but subconsciously they do it, and then they pull back because they don't want to see the clarity, what you're trying to show them. And they don't respect you enough that, they would just walk away when you ask them to. Because a lot of people, when you tell them you love them, they will abuse that love. And that's chivalry. That's romantic fantasy. That's a knight in shining armor. That's a Romeo. That's a Casanova. That's not the king of wands, or the king of water, the king of fire, the king of earth, the king of air. All these aspects in one masculine trait of true self-governing, which is in the emperor, in tarot, which is the true masculine, and the feminine is the empress. And their spirit counterparts are the priestess and the magician. So these false unions are not truly unions. They're using the word soul connection at the expense of draining us for our dear life, for our life force. And it's like snake in human's clothing, And I'm not saying this is meant to judge the other person, people who are still doing that. And they want to be with you, but they can't be with you at the same time, It's people like that. They're doing it because they're not at the level of soul maturity yet, and they still have lots of growth to do. And when you see it like that, you can forgive, and you can forgive yourself, and you can forgive them, and you can remember that the ultimate path of sacred union is the return to yourself. And for me, because I've already had that return years ago, and then it was hijacked, and then I returned again last year, and then it was hijacked some more, and then I returned to it this year. And now the only true purpose that I have now at this point is learning to maintain that, to preserve it, because it is absolutely, like Aurea said, it is so sacred. Don't anyone put their hands into a fountain if they're not absolutely willing to return the same level of devotion and commitment. And sometimes love is not enough. You need the same vision. You need people. You need beings with the same vision. Let's say two people who understand that they're on the ascending path and they're wanting to ascend, and they want to ascend together, for example, and they're willing to, even though they don't know what it is, they're willing to take that risk, take the leap of faith, take the chance, and walk that path. And for me, the only real spirit union, that commitment, is once you can commit to yourself so fully, and you already have everything, because spirit is so full of life. You are that life. Life can take you. Life can take you on an adventure. I know how to take myself on an adventure. And I know people who can never, without any sort of particular reason that would be for their own growth, choose to be on their own, to be alone. Because they have this attachment to something always feeding them from the outside. Even relationships on the 3D level are mostly vampire based. It's two people feeding off each other. They're feeding off each other. That's not true love. In your heart, Every one of us knows that. Even people who are in those kind of relationships, we all know somehow, if you go deep enough, you know that's not true love. True love is when you have two people who can be so pure and beautifully playful with each other. No mental restrictions. Sometimes people would say, oh, I'm so overwhelmed and overloaded with this crap. That's just resistance. And someone who's in the Christ love is no longer resisting life. Whatever comes, it comes. Sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's frustration. It's all part of the healing. But remember, when it's a union walk together, if you choose your devotional partner, you will have to walk with this and through this together. That's devotion. And you can see where people are now. No one is truly devoting themselves to themselves. So how can they devote to another? They can't. And just like I can enjoy my own company, and I'm so good. I'm like the opposite of people. I'm better off alone. I love being alone because people are what they are, and they're tricksters for the most part for me. That's where their consciousness is at this time. They're not embodying the Christ. So for me, it's difficult to be with them. I can love them. It's almost like I need to love them from afar because, ouch, they can burn. And, not everyone's like me. Not everyone can take themselves on an adventure and live a life of freedom and be a free spirit. Not everyone wants to, and that's fine. But remember where you know who you are and what this sacred union is for you, that journey back home. When you're absolutely able to fulfill your own cup all the time, it's pouring, it's pouring, it's pouring. You don't need the other. And for most of you, probably this is the time when the person would come in, if that's your soul agreement, if you made that vow. It's not opportunistic. It's not something you can scale like, oh, I would be with that one, but only if they had this and that, if they offer me this and that. Even in the spiritual circles, that is so prominent right now. People are using all sort of tricks to deceive themselves and the other. And you have to step away from that. Because only then, you demonstrate yourself, true love, and you demonstrate it to others. So I had this question, burning question, through this difficult relationship experience lately, and I've asked Spirit, well, what of these traits this relationship most served? Was it the dark hijacking and needing to learn about that and growing through and breaking through? Was it lessons? Was it healing, the inner child? Was it moving into union, into sacred union? And the answer was all of it. All of it. Because even if sometimes you don't feel it, each relationship has all the traits within it. But it has to turn you back towards yourself. You are that magical child. You are that beauty. Don't forget that. And I absolutely know without a doubt, when two people are meant to be together and walk this path, they will know without a doubt. Their heart will know. Maybe the mind in the beginning might still be like, but the heart recognizes the charge, the pull. They have the same level of growth and maturity and commitment, and they're looking at the same vision. Their eyes are reflections of each other. But in the first level of that union, let's not make that journey about the other until we absolutely heal ourselves and our human experience becomes nothing but the experience of the human becoming the Christ. Love becoming us, like I've shared in the previous video. So I've been in this beautiful landscape. Just recently, I've met a few new waterfalls, and I've recorded them, so I'll show you at the end. They're absolutely beautiful, and they can easily wash over with that divine light pouring of prana intelligence. So if you've had experienced some downfall yourself or difficulty, have the attention, And recently, I did this beautiful ceremony. What I actually did by the river, that was about a week ago, I think. I was so frustrated because I felt this external energy around me all the time. And what I did is I wrote the two names of me and that person on a stone, and I made this intention to be healed of everything that this brings me. And I threw the stone into the river. And then I did this beautiful devotional God prayer into the elementals to help me to bring that relationship into the truth, to bring myself back into the truth, so that's all eventually resolved and neutralized. Because Aurea told me that the way I came to this planet, fully neutral and pure, I have to become now. Even after all the turmoil and difficult experiences, this is my time, is to come back to myself fully. And that's what my ascension is about. That's what your ascension is about. That's Illumined Union at its finest. And it's a shame sometimes that we have so much obstruction of the dark working against it, but in a way we're challenged more. And these things are challenging for us, but they do challenge us in a way that they make us grow and become stronger. So don't give up. A lot of you on this path have had difficult relationships, maybe not necessarily you needed to be with that person, because this sacred union journey is not about being with the other, desiring that so ultimately that it burns you. It's being with the self. It's being so neutral in your love, so compassionate, so pure, and understanding there's healing at works, and that you have to go through that healing. And also understanding what is toxic, and in no way ever anymore, when you heal that core pattern, participate in that anymore, because you don't have to. You don't have to give the other. You don't have to allow them into their world. And I realize I'm not going to allow anyone in my world anymore unless they're willing to open up their own world fully to me as well. And I don't even worry about it, because I'm fully satisfied on my own. My cup is always full. And I always allow myself to be surprised by Spirit, but I know what is the truth for me. And a lot of people don't have the clarity here. They think that, oh, you know, we're just here to exchange with one another. Yeah, but what kind of exchange that is? And sometimes if I tell someone I'm leaving, I'm exiting this, and they don't understand, they think I'm being cut offish, but I'm actually just being self-loving. I'm being self-serving. And in this case, self-service is good. This is the good kind of selfishness that it's often being misinterpreted in these spiritual circles, making us believe that we're these altruistic vessels, and that the feminine is supposed to give to the masculine and, you know, expect nothing in return because she is the womb. No. The way the feminine heals this planet and this sacred union experience at the collective level, which is what I'm doing, is she's bringing all of life into her womb and feeding life in absolute neutrality. That life force goes where it's meant to be received. You know, sometimes it's maybe the other person who's going through that union and they will receive that blessing and a gift, or sometimes it's yourself. But it's an unconditional, unlimited force of life and unconditional love, which first has to be to the self. And you can't love someone else unconditionally if you don't really understand these things and divine principles and divine laws and sacredness and total respect. Because in most cases, what I experience, people couldn't care less about what you experience. They do something and they're not even willing to see that it's bad, what they're doing. And they never once think about what they're doing to you. Ever. Would you want to be with that kind of person? Do you think that's your beloved? A lot of people do. A lot of people think, well, we're just growing this way together. No. That's veils. That's ignorance. That's deception. I would say choose self-union instead, and choose it until maybe one day you meet that divine partner for yourself. If that's your intention. It's no longer my intention as much as it maybe was in the past. Maybe that's a specific reason that I finally came to my completion of that no longer being a desired outcome. But it is something that I already carry in my heart. And I wanted to share this with you and by this beautiful sacred river space, because it's an important chapter of our lives. Many people are sort of feeling that and coming into their own unions. And take these words with wisdom, but also resonate with what your inner core tells you always. Trust the beauty and purity of your soul. And if you are feminine, know that the true light warrior, who is the right divine masculine, not the distorted masculine, is the one who, you know, the spirit tarot I showed you just recently has a card. I think it's the King of Fire. He's portrayed as a being coated in this white light, and he's rushing on his horse through thick layers of darkness. But he's safe because he's in that light. If you're a woman who's done this work on yourself, be open to a masculine who's done a work on themselves, who's done this work. Don't offer yourself prematurely into a past just because you're getting some love, quick love and attention. It's not a quick fix thing, this union journey. The way you grow is by offering yourself the highest, the ultimate, the most beautiful version of love. And you don't have to be the sacrificial lamb anymore who needs to be there and assist others and hold the space for them. No. You only need to hold space for yourself. And as always, I greet you with so much compassion for this sacred union path. I know it's not easy for most of us. And I wish you nothing but the best, with so much love, wisdom and power, and of course, the courage to persevere and move on. Beloved blessings to all of you. Thank you for watching.